So a MEI buff showed up on the PTR a few days ago, and I wanted to give it a few days before I, actually talked about it, because I want to see how it felt, how it worked in game, all of that. But now that I've had a good amount of time to try it out in the PTR and see how it works, I honestly think that MEI now is a much better character, and actually has a lot more situations where you want to be picking her, and where she's gonna actually be useful to your team, and that should be kind of nice to you guys that want to play MEI, or I guess mainly a lot of MEI mains. Now, I'm going to say before we get started that I don't think that MEI is going to be the next completely overpowered hero. I think she's going to be good, but I don't think, as a lot of people are saying, where she's just going to completely dominate the meta. I don't really see that happening, but I do see her doing a lot better than where she's been for a long time, which is one of the worst characters in the game. So I'm honestly pretty excited for that, because personally, I do like playing a lot of MEI. With that all in mind, though, guys, let's get started on some other things about MEI. And the first thing I kind of wanted to talk about with MEI, in competitive in particular, is that with the new change where she can freeze multiple people at once, so, her ice goes through the enemies, which is the big change, and the fact that now it's harder to get away from MEI when she's freezing you, I think that it's going to allow her to play much more consistently and play much more like a CC bot type of character, which happens in a lot of games. And I think that MEI beforehand, before this change, you could kind of use her as a character to maybe sometimes get a pick on one of the enemies and then go in and hope that you can win from there. But now MEI can do a lot more. Now MEI can play near the front line, freeze either a single target, a lot easier now, or freeze multiple targets, and kind of do her same job of getting picks, but now actually have a lot more use in team fights with the crowd control. Even though her damage isn't the best, and even though it still won't be the best in team fights, she does add that to herself. Now, as far as some other stuff for MEI in competitive that I think is going to keep her pretty strong, is that she is kind of like Roadhog already, and she has been for a while. I mean, she doesn't have to rely on her team way too much. Beforehand, I think she had to rely on her team a little bit more because, the freeze took a bit longer, so you kind of needed some teammates to either slow the enemies down or to get some damage on them before they can get away. But now you can freeze people more often, you can get the kills on people more often. You overall just don't have to rely on your team nearly as much as you did before, and I think it makes her, again, feel kind of more into that Roadhog space, where you can do stuff with your team, but also you can be very self-reliant. And the reason why I kind of compare it to Roadhog is that both of them supply a little bit of CC, and as well, both of them are somewhat tanky, MEI and Roadhog, and both do a decent amount of damage. So as far as Roadhog, he's been good and competitive for a long time. You can climb with him pretty easily, and I think MEI's going to kind of be in a similar-ish boat. Of course, I know that she isn't a tank, but as far as DPS go, I think he's one of the most comparable people, at least in my opinion, for what I've been trying out on the PTR, with my own playstyle and from any of the gameplay that I've been able to really scrounge up. Now, I guess kind of speaking a little bit about DPS, MEI does a decent amount. It's not terrible, but I guess it isn't quite as good as the other DPS characters, but she kind of trades in a bit of her damage per second for crowd control and for pick potential. So if you're picking MEI, do kind of keep that in mind. That's just, in general, how the character is made from the ground up. But with the new update, her DPS becomes a lot more consistent, and let me just use an example right here. So let's say that you are trying to freeze the enemy Mercy, and then she Guardian Angels to her Reinhardt, who's not way too far away. Well, now if the Rein's not holding up his shield, I guess, you could walk next to the Rein, freeze through him to finish off freezing the Mercy, walk to the Mercy, shoot her in the head, and then hope that somehow you can get away from the Reinhardt. Maybe that's not the best example, but as you can see, there is more opportunity now to finish off your kills and to make so that you can't just be body blocked, which could happen a lot before. And as well, I think that if you're playing versus a team that just doesn't have any shields, it's going to be very hard for them to deal with you as MEI, because you're going to be freezing everybody, and the tanks really can't stop that. So, I mean, that's going to be a nice thing about her as well. Again, though, I do want to remind you guys that she does do a little less DPS than most of the DPS characters, and that's why I don't think that she's going to be overpowered. If she was buffed a lot in the DPS spectrum, and if she did like as much damage as Hanzo, or almost as much, yeah, I think that could be pretty broken. But as it is with these changes, I think they just make her damage more consistent, and maybe not more powerful, but just more useful. So I guess that's a thing to keep in mind. That'll make her stronger, but probably not in the overpowered level, as some people might be saying about her. Now, talking about, I guess, her abilities and her usefulness to her team, again, it's not the best for damage, obviously, but a thing I want to talk about, which is extremely important in competitive, is killing badly positioned enemies. And especially when you're playing in solo queue, at really any rank, even at really high ranks, people still do this. People will just walk in bad positions and walk way too far up, and if they're not D.Va where they can just fly above your wall, I mean, you can just catch them out straight up, kill them, and go on from there. And even on maps that aren't Hanamura, there still is a decent amount of time where, you know, you can block up the enemy Reinhardt. He's going to be stuck without his team for at least 3 or 4 seconds, and that will just be the perfect opportunity for you to go up, finish him off, and then push the next team fight really quickly. I mean, she's always been able to do that, but I think, yeah, that's something you just kind of can't forget about Mei, because her damage is a little worse. Even with this new change, it doesn't really fix that. But her pick potential is just so strong, and it really is one of the main reasons to pick her. Now, another thing about picking Mei, I guess, right here that I had listed right here, is that you actually can pick Mei with semi-bad team comps. As I was saying earlier, she doesn't really rely on her team too much. I think she relies on her team a little less than before, and of course, while she does benefit her team a lot with picks, walls, all of that, if her team's not helping her out too much, she still can play by herself, freeze people, protect herself, go into that icicle, stall for a lot of time. And I think because she has all those abilities that can do that, you can actually, in some cases, play her as the second tank slot. And yes, you shouldn't do this in all situations, and yes, if you are losing a round, obviously, you should be switching off of Mei if that's the case. But I think especially in certain maps of King of the Hill, or on certain parts of Hanamura, or a lot of other things like that, in certain situations, you can actually pick Mei as the tank slot, and we've been seeing that sometimes in the Overwatch League. You probably want to play with, you know, like a Roadhog or a Diva for a little bit more damage, or maybe you could just play with an Orisa or a Ryan for a shield tank to go in with. But I think that is another nice option to keep in mind, and another reason why she might be a good character to main, because she can actually fit into a decent amount of situations, and I think fit into more situations than a lot of the other DPS. Because yes, you can play triple DPS whenever, but I think Mei fits into triple DPS a lot better than some of the other characters, because you supply some things that mainly tanks would supply, that being crowd control, and, you know, just moving people out of the way, creating space, but you still supply some damage. So I think that's another nice thing about her that makes her strong in competitive solo queue in particular, and maybe will make her pretty strong in competitive Overwatch, that being the Overwatch League. Now, before I get kind of finished here, I do want to mention one thing, and that is that I don't think that Mei is likely going to dominate the meta right now. And unless there's like a certain map order that's going to be in the Overwatch League, I don't even think she's going to really dominate right there, because snipers are just really good right now. And Mei kind of has problems sometimes against even people like Winston, so if it goes back to another dive meta, well, maybe she'll do good against that, because she can just freeze them all at the same time, but I guess we're going to kind of have to see there. So in general, I don't really feel like there's a certain meta that we know exactly Mei's gonna fit in. And the second that her buffs come out, I don't think that she's just gonna be like in every single team comp, every single round. But I still think that she is good now, and that she has a lot of room to grow now, that you can use the just potential of her freeze to do a lot more for your team. And if you can get a really nice freeze, that can be almost like getting, like, you know, half a good Reinhardt ult. And I mean, you don't want to sleep on that. Especially against Deathball, I think Mei will also be a pretty good character, because you can either split them in half, as you've always been able to do, or you can just freeze them all together. So yeah, I think she's going to be good versus certain metas, but don't expect her to be extremely strong in the meta herself, especially right now, because there is, you know, a sniper meta, which is kind of hard for her to deal with. But again, yeah, I think she has potential to grow, but just don't expect anything way too godlike with her in the first few weeks. I think it'll probably take a little while for her to kind of warm up, and for a lot of people to warm up to the character. And the final thing I want to mention here is that there are already a lot of people that are warmed up with Mei, and even without the changes, that are doing really well with Mei. And if you look at the top 500 every single season, there's always a lot of Mei mains, and there's always like Jardio, other people, I don't know the exact names. But yeah, she's always been a character that you can do okay with if you can pull her out in comp. But I think that mainly now, Mei is just easier to pull out her potential, and has more overall potential in her kit. So I think that's why she's going to be played a lot more right now. But even without that potential, she's always been strong enough. It's just kind of hard to learn when to play her, where to play her, how to play her. So I guess something I should say right here is that, yeah, there's a lot of awesome stuff you can do as Mei. And if you want to pick her up and learn her, I think, you know, it's as good a time as any, and probably a better time than any, because she hasn't been buffed for a long time. But do expect that it probably will take a fat minute to learn this character. As we've seen in the past, she's not an easy one to learn, and her playstyle and her kit and everything is completely different from everyone else. The way that she team fights, the way that she goes for picks, the way that she does everything really is particular to Mei. And before the new buff comes out, if you really want to pick her up, I'd recommend to look up a Mei player and see what they're doing, Because, yeah, she's not like someone like Reaper, where when the new changes come out, you can pick them up pretty easily. MEI really is something different. So, you know, I'd probably recommend to do that. And maybe if a lot of people learn how to play her, she could become pretty good in that way. Because, yeah, I think she does have a lot of potential. But I guess we're just going to kind of have to see with all of that in the future. Anyways, as always, guys, though, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Today, just wanted to talk about MEI, and if she's going to be the next overpowered hero. My personal answer, no. But I do think that she's going to be a good hero, and hopefully she can get around a 50% win rate, maybe even a little bit more. I think that would be pretty awesome with her. Anyways, as always, guys, though, thank you all for watching. Hope you enjoyed. If you did, make sure to leave a like or comment down below what your opinions about MEI are, as both do help me. Press the subscribe button to see more videos like this in the future. And as always, guys, have a wonderful day.